3 worst tsunamis ever recorded. Tsunamis have occurred on numerous occasions throughout history. In Japan, the phenomenon is so common that they developed a word for it as su, which means harbor, and nami, which means wave. Tsunamis are frequently triggered by earthquakes in fault zones, but they can also be caused by volcanic eruptions, alien collisions, large landslides, and other events. In the wide ocean, they create massive sea waves that expand in size as they approach land. They differ depending on the reason, the fault line, the depth of the ocean, and the ocean itself. The main tsunamis are located in volcanically active locations, such as the Pacific Ocean's Ring of Fire. This is especially true on Japan's east coast and North America's west coast. Because there is a limited historical data on the size of tsunami waves, how many occur in a single event, or how far they advance on shore, scientists evaluate them based on the amount of damage they do. However, determining the extent of damage caused by a single tsunami event can take months or years, and it may be sometime before the Japan earthquake, and tsunami can be truly rated on a historical scale. So, now that we've covered the fundamentals, let's look at the top 3 worst tsunamis ever recorded. Number 1. Sumatra, Indonesia. 26 December 2004. On Sunday morning, December 26, 2004, a strong underwater earthquake off the coast of Sumatra Island, Indonesia, triggered the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, often known as the Christmas or Boxing Day tsunami. The magnitude 9.1 earthquake shattered a 900-mile section of fault line that connects the Indian and Australian tectonic plates. It was a massive megathrust earthquake that occurred where a heavy ocean plate slid beneath a lighter continental plate. The quake caused the ocean floor to rise by up to 40 meters, resulting in a tremendous tsunami. Within 20 minutes of the earthquake, the first of multiple 100-foot waves slammed onto Banda Aceh's shoreline, killing over 100,000 people and leveling the city. Then in quick succession, tsunami waves crashed over coasts in Thailand, India, and Sri Lanka, killing tens of thousands more. The tsunami claimed its final victims on the coast of South Africa 8 hours later and 5,000 miles from its Asian epicenter. In total, almost 230,000 people were killed, making it one of the greatest disasters in contemporary history. Since the 2004 tsunami, governments and relief organizations have focused disaster risk reduction and preparedness. Only 3 weeks after the tsunami, delegates from 168 nations signed the Hyogo Framework for Action, paving the path for global disaster risk reduction cooperation. Since then, ocean floor seismic sensors have been installed to provide early warnings, and many local populations have been trained in evacuation and emergency response. Major earthquakes and tsunamis in August and September 2018 put Indonesia's abilities to respond and recover to the test. Then, in December 2018, the continuous eruptions of the Enak Krakatau volcano in the Sunda Strait created undersea landslides, which triggered a tsunami that hit beaches in both Sumatra and Java. More than 400 individuals died as a result of the volcanic activity that occurred without notice. The Indonesian government is now seeking to integrate volcano sensors into its warning systems. The magnitude of the earthquake was between 9.1 and 9.3, making it the 3rd most powerful since 1900. The magnitude of an earthquake is a measurement of the amount of energy released at its source. The quake's intensity was rated 9 on the Mercalli scale in the worst affected areas, the 2nd highest level available. As a result, the quake caused strong shaking and extensive damage to even well-built structures, a disaster that we don't want ever to happen again. Number 2. North Pacific Coast, Japan, 11th March 2011. On 11th March 2011, a magnitude 9 earthquake struck the Pacific Ocean off the northeast coast of Japan's Honshu Island, in the Tohoku area. The Japanese government named the incident the Great East Japan Earthquake, which generated a large tsunami that swamped more than 200 square kilometers of coastal territory. The height of the waves was reported to be 38 meters, or the height of a 12-story structure. An estimated 20,000 individuals were killed or went missing, while nearly 500,000 were forced to flee. A nuclear power plant meltdown also resulted in a nuclear emergency. The earthquake, tsunami, and nuclear tragedy are estimated to have cost $360 billion in direct economic losses. Despite the fact that Japan is a world leader in disaster preparedness, the 2011 tsunami produced massive devastation and humanitarian needs that necessitated an international response. The Japanese government established a 10-year recovery schedule in July 2011, with precise milestones for clearing debris, repairing infrastructure, and housing. Almost all of the debris from the earthquake and tsunami have been recycled or burned thus far. The majority of the wrecked infrastructure, roads, bridges, trains, and airports, has been rebuilt. According to the Japan Rehabilitation Agency, housing reconstruction is well underway. However, the failure of the Fukushima nuclear power plant had far-reaching consequences, making rehabilitation in the Fukushima prefecture challenging. Radiation levels are still high at the wrecked power plants. TEPCO, the Tokyo Electric Power Company, which runs the impacted power stations, anticipates that complete decommissioning will take 30 to 40 years. The Japanese government is keeping a close eye on food safety, agricultural and fisheries production to ensure that they are within safe limits in populated areas. Now the question is, how does the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami compare to the Japan tsunami? The main difference between the two tsunamis is not their size, but the level of preparation and warning provided to humans in their paths. During the 2004 Indian Ocean earthquake and tsunami, 167,000 people died in Banda Aceh, Indonesia, with little warning to prepare. The setting was also important. Both waves were felt around the world, but the Indian Ocean tsunami killed and injured people not just in Indonesia, but also in India, Sri Lanka, and Thailand. Number 3. Lisbon, Portugal, 1st November 1755. Last but not least, there is the Lisbon tsunami. One of Europe's most severe earthquakes struck Lisbon on the morning of November 1st, 1755. By the end of the week, 75,000 people had died as a direct result of the earthquake, making the 1755 earthquake one of the deadliest natural catastrophes in history. Many Portuguese question their religious beliefs as a result of the devastation, and the heinous tragedy has affected Lisbon's history ever since. The earthquake occurred on November 1st, which was All Saints' Day. The extremely pious Portuguese filled Lisbon's churches on that day to commemorate this major feast day. The medieval church construction was not meant to survive the intense earth movements, and many worshippers were killed as the roofs of the religious buildings collapsed on them. The magnitude of the earthquake has been debated. However, it is thought to be between 8.5 and 9. At 10:24 a.m., the first tremor of the earthquake struck during the Latin church service. The epicenter of the 1755 earthquake was 320 kilometers southwest of Lisbon, in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. The earthquake was caused by a huge rupture of the Azores-Gibraltar fault line, which resulted in one of Europe's greatest tsunamis. The tsunami hit Lisbon 45 minutes after the earthquake, at a time when much of the city was on fire. The water drained from the Rio Tejo estuary before the tsunami hit, uncovering shipwrecks laden with riches. Thousands of people rushed into the muddy river to grab the treasures, but no one could have predicted what was going to be unleashed on the city of Lisbon at the time. When it impacted Lisbon, the tsunami was reported to be 9 meters high. The devastating wave was funneled up the estuary of the river Tagus, rapidly flooding all low-lying territory, including the modern-day areas of Baixia and Belém. Within the 3 hours that followed the earthquake, there were 2 more tsunami waves that hit Lisbon. Thousands of people who had escaped the earthquake's devastation were drowned, killed by falling rubble, or dragged out to sea by the tsunami. The higher regions of Lisbon that had avoided the torrents of water were no safer, as vast swaths of the city were on fire by the time the tsunami struck. Many of these fires began in churches as the candles lit for the feast day fell over and ignited the dry flowers. If the earthquake had struck on another day, the destruction and death toll would have been much lower. Over 90% of the buildings in Lisbon had either collapsed due to the earthquake, been flooded by the tsunami, or been burned by fires a week after the earthquake. The 70,000-volume Royal Library, the Royal Ribeira Palace, and the whole Baixia neighborhood were all destroyed. The rebuilding of Lisbon was quick. In less than a month, Manuel de Maia, chief engineer, had created 5 plans for the reconstruction of Lisbon. Because of the extent of the destruction, one idea was to abandon the city entirely, but they kept on and recovered in the end. Such tragedies are undoubtedly heartbreaking and soul-shattering. Years of hard effort come to naught. We are returned to where we began, and the amount of lives lost can make anyone's eyes well up. However, despite being the hub of destruction, these natural calamities serve to remind us that no force is greater than that of nature. All we can do is pray and hope that we never get under such a disaster. And if you're the one on the safe side, do remember those who are suffering. Because if you don't help, who will? Life is all about living for others. I hope you were able to get valuable information from this video. If so, click the subscribe button and press the bell icon because we keep bringing such informative videos that help you learn a lot.